Hello, Jamie from Inky&Scrappy, sharing with you today my brewing up creativity with Jamie from Inky&Scrappy. This one is one that I do live locally once a month. I usually do 2 cards. Sometimes I put them on Etsy if I have extras. I'm not gonna do that. I think I only have 1 extra kit, so I'm just going to do it and get some Easter cards out this year. But this one is using the Diorama, so it'll be done in real time. If that's one that you struggle with, I show you a couple of tips and tricks. And then of course, you know, coloring and all the things. This one is going to use the Eggstraordinary Easter stamp set. I think it was last year's release from Fawn. So everything that we are doing today comes from that stamp set, at least image wise. So I have this one stamped out, this guy here stamped out, 2 to 3 of the little paint pots stamped out, and 2 butterflies stamped out. Feel free to switch up your images, do whatever you want, you know. And if you don't have that particular stamp set, anything will work for it. The one with the carrot car will work in this as well. So I'll start from there. So I've got everything cut out. The paper I'm using for my pattern paper today is from Simple Stories. I want to say it's called Hoppy Easter. It's the plaid one. It's got Easter eggs on, or like jelly eggs, Easter eggs on the back. So either side you can use for that one, for the most part. And then purple is from Close to My Heart. So some coordinating cardstock, and then of course a A2 card base cut down to size. I want to say it's 4.5 by 3 3/4. 3.5. 1, 2, 3. It's just, yeah, about 3.5. So 4 3/4 by 3.5 to make my little card base. You can definitely mount it on a full size A2 size card. I just like doing the little one because I just like how it stands up then, but it's totally up to you. And then I do have this one actually comes from the Diorama die, the little flagged banner. And so all of that's already stamped in my kit for class, just because we try to get it within a 2-hour window. Let's just say I did not get these 2 in a 2-hour window last time. So, you know, it is what it is. Let's go over color guides. So I'm using my Ohuhu, mostly the Ohuhu set for markers, just because that's what I have in my class kits. I did end up pulling in 2 markers from the Honolulu line. One is either from the first 70 set or the first 72 set that I got, because that's in my class stuff. And then of course I think the other one might be from their pastel line. So I have those 2 sets added to my original 60 and skin tone set from the Honolulu line. So I did pull out, there's quite a few here. You don't need them all. This was just what I had color options for class. Of course, like always, I did a color map for you. So if you are interested in the color map, it will be up on my blog, InkyandScrappy.com, and it will be on the right hand side or the drop down menu, because I think if you're mobile, it's like on the little drop down menu, it shows you the pages. So this one will be there. So what I want to show you is the difference from what we think it is and what it prints and or copies as. So when you're looking at colors online, you know, it's a very big variegation from this one to this one. These were photographed and then printed on my computer, and the color is totally off. So when we did class, I was like, well, these are the colors, those are your color guides, but this is the actual one, and you can see how much lighter this one is compared to that one. So just keep that in mind when you're following color guides, that sometimes what you think the color is online is not what the color is in real life. So I always encourage you to swatch out your markers and find the best blends for you. So my color guides, I will also have these up on my blog. It's just a guide, and I only did 2 images instead of 3. A lot of times I do 3 steps instead of 2 steps, but coloring the darkest shadowed areas, coming in with the next marker, which was the, like for the green, was the G340 on this one, coloring in a second layer. So I'll kind of come in here and do another layer and leave a little bit of white, but then I go back in with a third layer and color the whole area again. So from egg end to egg end, and that'll give you that color blend. Sometimes it needs a little more working and you're gonna have to color it a little bit more. The purples definitely needed a little more working on this one to get from this color to that color. I'm sure I could have found a better blend, but in real life I try to use what I can for class wise, because I have 2 sets of my class markers for some things, not for all of it, but so I do try to, at least it doesn't take us 5 hours to color most of the time. So to start, I'm gonna start coloring and we'll go from there. I'll explain it as I go and, you know, kind of go from there. I did do 2 color blends for the most part this time. I wanted to keep it fairly, I don't want to say simple, but fairly easier for somebody that's starting out with alcohol markers. I'm well seasoned, I guess, or I've done it for longer, so I kind of know where I'm at. I'm just gonna set up a little guide here for me because I forget the camera is rolling when I'm coloring and I move things. So if I set myself a little how shall we say, I could actually just take my marker and kind of, I'll make myself a little playpen so I know that I have to keep, you know, my stuff inside the playpen. Keep the kids inside the playpen, ma'am. Alrighty, so to start, I usually start with either the bigger color. I just usually pick one and then I work from there. So I will usually color everything that I need purple as I go. Now keep in mind that you don't need to color everything the same as I color it. You know, if you want to switch up your colors, go for it. That's, you know, I like variety as well. Am I going to switch them up today? We'll see. I'm not done yet. It's a possibility. So let's see. This one, I'm going to do just the tip of my marker on that one, purple, and then I'm going to come in and do some drop shadows on this one and this one. I like to variegate, shall I say, I like it when my images kind of have a repetition or a pattern. So I kind of know what I'm aiming for the most part. For my paint pot, I just kind of want to come up and make those drips kind of dark. I'll come back in and blend them out a little bit and try to make it look like maybe the end is darker. And then for that center part, I'm just going to do it all in. It's such a small area that it's not, I don't want to say not a big deal, but it's not a huge area, so I try to just use one color on there. All right, and a little. So I'm done with my dark marker, hopefully. And then I'm going to come in with the lighter one. So with the lighter one, I'm going to come in and I'm going to start working over where that dark one ends. So not all the way over, because I don't want to bleed it out too much, but I want to blend it some or bleed it out a little bit so it kind of starts to merge into that lighter tone, especially with this one because it is such a drastic change. You could definitely do a little bit of tip to tip, but the areas are so small that tip to tip sometimes doesn't work. I don't know, it doesn't work the greatest because you take a longer time trying to get to the color that you have blended out than maybe it's going to take to actually get said color to blend out. So once I have that one, oh, I need to come back in here. I forgot my little dots. And please feel free to zoom ahead if you don't want to watch the coloring. I understand it's a tedious process. The other thing you know, to play it, I can sound like a chipmunk. I have no problem with that one. And so then once I come back in for my final or my lightest middle spot, I go over that whole area again, and that just helps kind of merge those colors together. Now keep in mind I'm doing this all at once, so if you're doing wet on wet, I mean it's probably fairly dry already at this point. If you're doing wet on wet, you're gonna get a little bit more blend. If you don't want as much of a blend, which sometimes I don't want as much of a blend, I will wait for it to dry and then come back in and hit it, especially if you're doing one color blend. And by that I mean like just coming in over that same color one more time to get maybe a little bit darker tone in a different spot. That's a good way to do a one marker color blend where you're getting multiples of, you know, multi-look on the same one. So for my pinks, I'm using RV390 and R295. So my RV390 is the darker shade. On my color chart, it's actually the second one, because when I did it, I did not realize that it was the darker, you know, because I didn't have my color swatches. I did my color swatches at the airport, and so I was kind of just going by what I thought was the darkest tone. And yeah, sometimes they weren't actually the darkest tone, so I had to go back and re-evaluate or readjust as I was doing my color swatching. Oh, let's see. I think we'll do some pink wing tips on this one as I color outside the line. And I'm getting out of my little playpen. Whoops. I colored outside the line again. Jaime. Okay. And so now with this one, I'm just going to come in and kind of, oh, I used the same dark one. Well, that's fine. I'll just come back in with my lighter one now, and I'm just going to go over that whole area. But you can see how just going over it with the same tone marker, as long as you're going over it a second layer, you're layering that ink on top of, you know, it's a transparent ink, so it's going to layer on top of the other. And so keep that in mind when maybe you only have one color and you want it to look like you have 2 or 3 colors. The more layers you layer on top of it, the stronger that color is going to be. Let me find my jelly roll. You can definitely go in with a 0 marker and try to push the color back in. Pinks are not a very good pusher of color, or you can't push them in very good, so I just came in with a white jelly roll to, you know, erase my mistake. It happens. Done with those two. So I'm going to come in with, this one is G3, oh, I have the wrong one. Okay. Let's try this again. So G9 and G340. So I think we're going to go in with the brush on this one. So for this one, oh, and I colored the whole thing. Sometimes it's cute to leave part of that uncolored because then it looks like he's still working on it. And so I did that on one of mine. I don't think I did that on the other one. Okay. I have to do that big area yet. I'm going to come back and do that one after I'm done with this one, just because it's, let's say it's going to take a little bit more, and I really want to work on that one wet on wet, just because my greens here aren't, I wouldn't say they're the closest And they kind of, one has more of a blue tint to it than the other. The lighter one kind of has that bluer tint, and so I kind of want to make sure that it's wet on wet to get it to blend better on that larger area, especially because we have to go around all of the other things, like the little purple dots and stuff. So, and then I'm going to come back here and we'll just go over that whole thing. So when you're trying to blend two markers that don't necessarily color match the greatest, you know, because I'm kind of going from this one's meadow green to horizon green, but the horizon green really is more of that bluish, a bluish green, and this one is more of a yellowish, I don't want to say yellow, it's kind of a light sagey green, I think. And so it's going to take a little bit more time to get it to work, I guess. And so I'm going to kind of hit the parts that I want darker with my sagey green here. I'm going to pull them up so far. Now, I haven't decided if I want to go. I can maybe just do a light line there. And I kind of want a shadow where the bunnies are kind of holding it. Just a little bit more. And so once I'm comfortable with where my shadow is, I'm going to start going in with my next tone, which is that G340. And for this end, because it's such a small area, that's actually going to be blended. I just do the whole thing at once. The other thing is with this one, go over that whole area again that you've already colored. It's going to help work that color blend together a little bit better, and it's not going to seem quite as stark. And this one's kind of going to be similar. There's a little bit more, I guess, there, so I'll leave a little bit open. Now, I'm not as worried about the area on top of it because I can always go back and hit that. But I want to make sure that I concentrate on where my colors are touching to mix better. And so now you can see I'm kind of getting a better transition there. And now I just need to go in. And I'm going to focus mostly on that area that I colored with this one to start with. Not so much where it meets the other one. I'm going to go just barely over that part where my G9 kind of starts, or I should say ends, with this one. So it's going to add another layer of this color on top of that one, and then you get a nicer transition there. I hope that explained it better. I don't know. I struggle sometimes explaining those things because I've done it so long that I don't really think about it anymore. So it is what it is, right? So for my paint pots, just any gray is going to work. I'm going to do a WG4 and a WG2. So kind of lighter toned on the grays here. Of course, the WGs are more of a warm gray than a C. A C would look really good here as well, because C's tend to be more of a metallic color, in my opinion. Okay, so I have my paint pots done. So let's go. I'm just gonna do that little gray spot there. a little metal on my paintbrush. You can go with the lighter or the darker. You can mix them if you really, really, really want to. For my rabbits. So let's see. I did a blend of WG150 and WG01. So I have to get out my charts to figure out which ones they would be. I will try to list them down below. If I forget and it's something that you want to know, let me know. I will look up what their conversions are in the new ones. I didn't write them on my conversion sheet, so I have no clue currently where they're at. Yeah. On the other, because I think I mixed too. I mixed the Ohuhu Ohanas and, no, the Oahu's Ohana's family. That's a Stitch reference. Anyways, I mixed the Honolulu and the Oahu ones for class, so I didn't necessarily look up to see which one the conversion was, because I was just playing with what I had. And yeah, I wanted some white rabbits. They tend to be fast and simple to color. I don't know fast, but it's just less, I don't know. They tend to just flow together a little bit quicker, in my opinion. You know, you don't have to be as, I don't know, as picky with them, I think. So for my pink cheeks, I'm going to bring in Pear Color, which is R195. And I'm going to lay that in the nose, because I want a pink little nose, and then some pink little cheeks. But I'm also going to put that on the inside of the ear. And I do this now because then I can go over it with my next tone, and it'll kind of blend it out a little bit and make it not as stark. Granted, if I had a lighter pink, or even a darker pink, you can work quite a bit with your next marker. So here I'm going in with the WG01. Now this one kind of looks almost darker when you start with it because it's wet and the other one's dry, and when they dry they kind of dry back a little bit, and so don't be like alarmed if it feels like or it looks like it's darker than the other. So as long as your dry marker color looks like it's supposed to be lighter, you're probably fine. I did end up going a little over the top with this one, but on my white bunny it's really more of a gray bunny, but it is what it is. Okay, so now to take that colorless blender. Why are you using a colorless blender? It's just gonna help push that last color out or in a little bit more, and it kind of actually makes that blend seem a little less, I don't know, stark. It kind of just weakens it, I think. Like instead of that stark white look and then that gray, you get kind of a gentler look on your white rabbit. So he still looks white and colored, but it kind of pushes him out a little bit. This one still looks like it needs a little bit. There we go. Okay, I'm happy with Mr. Rabbit. Alright, so this one here, I am going to do a brown rabbit just because I can. No, I'm going to use E294, which is Buttercup Yellow. Buttercup Yellow in the Ohuhu line, as opposed to the Honolulu line, because Buttercup in the Honolulu line, I think there's a Buttercup too. It's not the same color in both of them, so keep in mind when you're doing that. And then I did 477, which is the Morin. I think it's called Morin. I don't know. That's my lighter tone. So I'm going to start with the E294. Those ones around. I like to keep the face lighter if I can. I don't always feel like I can, depending upon where. I don't really do light source like you're supposed to do light source, so depending upon where my shadow is going to fall, I mean, I try. Sometimes I try harder than other times. Does that make sense? I don't know. it is what it is, right? And then for this one, oh, let me come in with that pink first. And I might end up hitting this one with pink again, just because I'm going on brown, right? And so it's gonna be a darker color than the white, the warm grays were that I had used earlier. So for this one, I'm just gonna come in and I'm gonna color that whole area again. So, and then for the face, because I kind of want it to have a little bit more of a highlight area in the center, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna come back and color that after it's dry, I guess. And then any area that I think I want a highlight on. So here I want the belly to have a little bit of a highlight, the top of the hands or arms to have a teeny tiny little bit of the highlight. So then I can come back in after and kind of go over that whole area one more time, and that'll help blend in my dark and my lighter tone, and then it'll leave a highlight area in the area that I left white, if that makes sense, because you're layering those colors on top of each other again. Now, if you felt like I like totally blended that out too much and I think I lost my shadow, you can always come back in with your darkest tone and just lay a shadow in again, and it'll actually blend it in because you're still wet. It'll blend in fairly well, but it'll lay that shadow area down again. So let's say I missed underneath his arm here with a shadow area. So, and I feel like his ears got bled out a little bit too much. Now I'm going to come back in with my pink again because, yeah, even though I didn't go over the nose, it's still, I don't know, it kind of looked like it bled it out a little bit. But here is my brown bunny. I need to do, I'm just going to come in with that really light warm gray and kind of do this little bunny tail, just 2 little dots on each of those little, right there. And then let's see, for the brown, you can use the browns that you had out. I'm just going to bring in an E189, which is persimmon. I think it's persimmon, thin persimmon, to add a different shade of brown to my brush. You could definitely get away with the same shade of brown. So there are those images for, oh, I didn't do the egg yet. So for the egg, I didn't want to color that big large area. I was cheating. And so I'm coming in with that WG01, so my lightest warm gray. And I'm just going to drop a shadow along the whole thing on this side, and then I'm going to come in on this side, kind of get it brought out, and then taper it down towards the top and the bottom. And that way it looks like it's still light, and it has a little bit more movement and color in there. So let me get these out of the way. And let's zoom back out. You see, I built myself a playpen. Alrighty. And let's see. I just need a little bit of rubbing alcohol. So I have a little bottle with rubbing alcohol in on my desk, and that'll clean up that, well, okay, if I actually do the spots and not, my towel is dry, so just spraying. Rubbing alcohol is obviously going to take off alcohol marker. It's like an eraser for alcohol ink. And so, easy enough, right? I have to remember that when I do lives with Kate, because that would probably be a whole lot easier to work with. Just saying. Okay, I think I have extra. Oh no, this one goes with that one. Alrighty. So for this one, now I have all of my pieces colored. I have all of my Tada diorama pieces cut. for this one, we are going to come in with, do I have it somewhere. Where did it go? So for class, I did die cut pieces of a plasticky sheet. Oh, here they are. So just taking my border stencil or border dies, and I cut, this is, I think I got it off of Amazon. It's called stencil paper or mylar. It's super thin. It cuts fairly, I think I cut 2 to 3 sheets at a time, as long as you put a piece of cardstock underneath. It worked really well. But so if you don't have a stencil and you want a stencil, that is something that you can definitely do. Or if you have stencils, definitely use your stencils. They work well. But for class purposes, and so everyone has their own stencil, and I don't have to buy a whole bunch, that's what I do to make class stencils. Now, you can either use a purple, a blue, or a pink probably to make clouds for this one. We're just going to do some simple clouds on the background. For class, we did shaded lilac or stormy sky or spun sugar, because that's what's in my class pack of inks. Just getting yourself a rainbow kind of one to choose from or pick from kind of helps if you're just starting out, kind of picking a, I don't know, it's got some, it doesn't have reds, but I usually have an extra red, but it's what we use a lot of in class. So I'm just going to use my Amethyst from Close to My Heart, because it's a bigger pad and it's the color that I really wanted. The shaded lilac was a little bluer than I had hoped, at least in my finished card. So start by inking up your brush, and then start with the light hand. Now, I think we think the heavier the hand, the darker the color, but really the lighter the hand and then just working up your color is going to give you a much smoother transition and or blend, and you'll have less splotching. It does take some practice and some time, and you'll get there. So if it's not something that turns out right away, it's okay. It's the sky, it's not the end of the world. So making sure to hold your stencil in place so it doesn't move on you. And I like to start on the stencil when I re-ink and then kind of work my way up. A lot of times in a light circular motion, sometimes, you know, straight up off the edge, depending upon what look you're looking for. But keep in mind, if you over inked your blending brush, you might get streakies. So I like using the makeup style blending brush. I picked mine up on Amazon for fairly cheap. I want to say I picked up, these are my die ones, so they're a little bit bigger. This one was a different set. My oxide ones are a little bit of a smaller blending brush head, and I want to say they came in like a 26 pack, and I want to say they were less than $1 a piece. I want to say they were like $25 for the 26 pack. So it wasn't too, I don't know, too costly, I guess. I had picked up, you can also pick up some nice ones from like the Dollar General or Dollar Tree. You know, obviously the Dollar Tree is going to run you $1.25. And Dollar General, I think theirs were like anywhere between $2 and $3 depending upon the size of the brush head. Theirs were nice too. I liked theirs. That was how I kind of dipped my toes in the water when it came to the makeup style blending brushes for ink blending. I also picked up these, I think were from, they're an eye smudge brush for a smaller one. I picked those ones up at, I think, Dollar General or the Dollar Tree as well, and they work very well. Okay, so we're done with that one. I just kind of blended the rest around the outside. You're not even going to see that, but you know, I like that finished look. Let me set those ones off to the side. And that's all the ink blending we really need to do for this one. You are more than welcome to hit the top of the hills if you want to add a little bit more. I'm just going to do it with the purple because it's actually just going to add a little bit of a shadow. It's not going to add a lot. especially because I'm not re-inking it, but you can definitely hit the tops of those hills if that's what you want to do. You know, it'll give it a little bit more of a look, ink blended look. So for these two pieces, we're going to bring in and we're going to start folding our extras, right? So we have these two cut from purple. Of course, they're both cut with the same die, and then of course you're using the little boot on each side. So I always like to say the tip of the boot is kicking the biggest side. That's kind of how I remember. If you always forget which one goes where, that's how I remember. The boot tip kicks the big end. You know, kicking it in the butt. I don't know, it works for me to remember. So I try to make sure that when I fold them over, they are lined up. So this is flush. So fold in, crease that line, and then on the cut side, you're going to fold that one in as well. And making sure that is lined up. So now I have both of them folded and ready to go. Now, if you wanted to ink anything on this piece here, I would suggest doing it now as opposed to waiting until you have it all together. Let's see. This one I did when it was all together, and I just did some little tails by my butterflies. So it worked. It wasn't a huge deal, but if that's something that makes you nervous, do that one now. So I have those two pieces folded, and then I have my little brackets here. So I will fold them in as well. And this one in. So I have both of those done. And then I do an extra piece. So this is actually this piece. So when you cut this one out, you have, you know, there's nothing there, right? So you have this score line and that score line. So I just purposely cut a smaller piece of paper. So usually it's about this. I don't know if I have one right handy, but so usually I cut here and I leave a little bit of a gap on both sides. So I kind of cut it down so it's maybe ½ inch is really the most you want this one to be on both of those ends, if that makes, oh, you're gonna be able to see it better. Maybe here we go. So you see how it's cut to about ½ inch. It doesn't need to be that wide, but I'm gonna fold those two over, and then I'm just gonna take and fold the two folds back together again, or so it makes like a little Z fold, right? So it makes like a W. We are winning today, right? The other thing you can do is just, as long as your edges or your ends are the same, you know, your fold flaps are the same width, you can definitely just fold it in half. But I like to make sure that it's, you know, because I don't always cut them straight. So I fold them and then fold it again in the middle. And so it makes a little M or a little W. I guess it's probably going to be an M on my card. This is what holds the front of the panel onto the back of the panel, so you don't have that shift. So we will add those later on, but I was just going to explain, since we were folding everything, that's where we're going. So for this one, now you don't have to make sure that your little loop, and I like to use liquid glue, some people like to use tape. You use what's most comfortable for you. So you don't have to have those little loopies inside of the little loopy here, because obviously this is gonna be in there anyways. I think more so the guide on that one is if it's lined up there, you're not gonna be able to over open it, which I'm fine with over opening it. I do it with mine all the time. I kind of butt them up more towards the outside than the inside. And so just keep that in mind when doing that. I don't usually worry too much about if it's hanging over on this side. It just actually lets you pull it open further. Sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's not. So I glued those on the front, on the back side, and then I will set that one off. I'm gonna start working on this piece. So this one, you're gonna do that fold in half. So it's folded in half. We're only going to put adhesive on the smaller flap without the holes in it. And then we're going to butt this up to the edge of that panel, making sure that it doesn't overhang the edge, and you want a little bit of wiggle room on the top and the bottom here. It doesn't have to be equidistant, as close to equidistant as you can get. And then we're going to do the other side. So the other side, we're going to start here, do the same glue down. So you want to make sure that your cutouts are facing down, or your clouds are going to be upside down and they're going to be sad clouds. So for this one, I actually line that up in the middle. I want them to touch in the middle. I don't want them to overlap in the middle. I want them to be as close to each other in the middle as possible. And I'm not totally concerned. Sometimes it lines up perfectly. Sometimes I might be a little hair off. It's not going to be that big of a deal. But as long as you have it lined up in the middle, you're going to have success. Does that make sense? As opposed to lining up both ends on each side, because maybe this one didn't go all the way to the end, and so I don't want it to overhang in the middle. Now for your little hillsides here, you can pick which one you want, the hill in the front or the back, or you know, that sort of thing. I'm going to try to only fold one flap on the top of each of these down. We will see how it goes. I think I want this one. So this one I did both sides and then wiggling that through, making sure to open up the flaps on the side that you pull through. And then this one as well. So this one, as long as you start with a flap that you didn't fold down, you might be able to get away with just folding the one side. The second side is way harder to put in than the first side. At least that was what my students had figured out in class as well. So sometimes folding both of them on that second side makes your life a little bit easier. But you do have a little bit of wiggle room with the hills, more so I think than with the flat ones that come with the original Ta-Da diorama. So I am using the hill add-on. I know they have the grassy add-on. I did not buy the grassy add-on. I know. So for this one, I cut out just an oval. So I used a Spellbinders oval for this one. I wanted an egg. I wanted an inside-out stitched egg. I do not have an inside-out stitched egg in my collection. So I did with an oval because it's egg-ish shaped. But I also bumped it up a little bit because I want this, you know, this part is just going to cover up that grassy piece down there. And I wanted my little bunnies to kind of have a little bit more room to show, because they are a fairly large image for that little window. And so by doing it this way, I could definitely make sure that they were going to be more seen. I think my original one I did not do. I centered it. And that's when I was like, you know, I think I'm going to like it better if I do it the other way. So I'm just going to feed in both of the sides there. And then we should be able to go bloop and bloop. At this point, you can choose to glue in your little stabilizers so your front piece stays on. You can also decide to not put the front on here and then build your scene and then put the front on. It's totally up to you. Truthfully, I've done it both ways. For ease of showing on camera, I think I'm going to pull this off just because I think it's going to be easier for you to see how I'm doing it without that front piece on. It also makes it a little bit easier for me to finagle on camera trying to get my images in. Now this one is a fairly large image for the Ta-Da. It's probably the largest width-wise that you can go on that back panel. Now keep in mind the Ta-Da has, you know, some limitations with room. This one I'm going to put glue on just the bottom. I don't want glue sticking wherever my hill is going to be exposed. And so by just putting it on the bottom of their little toes, I should be able to get it in there lined up without any issues. So as long as you have your bunny tails are low enough that they are going to hit the little flappy thingies you see here. So I'll close it and move it. So you see how the little bunny tail is over enough to get under that flap? Because that is the widest part. I think it, no, it would be too wide otherwise. It needs, those bunny tails need to be able to sit in the little slit, or they need to fit. So by doing it where the bunny tails are just low enough on that hill that they're gonna hit where the cut line is, you can go with that big of an image. And I think that is the biggest image I have gotten to fit in the Ta-Da diorama to date. I know, it is what it is, right? So this little guy goes on my front window, and I think I'm gonna wait with the rest of them until I have the front on. I really just wanted to show you how I get that big image on there. If you know the limitations and what your, I guess what you're working with zone and why you're only allowed to use so much, I think it helps figure out, I don't know, the Ta-Da part of it. So for this one, I have my Ta-Da put together in that respect. So my front panel is on. I am going to come in already and do my little flaps. So, well, if I can hold on to said little flaps, they're like little grasshoppers. Okay. Yes, Danielson, grasshopper. All right. So closing this one up, I'm just going to lift up. I don't want to bend it, but I want to lift up, and I'm just going to tuck this in. I should really have it backwards, but tuck this in. I want it to sit, let's see, did I hit, I didn't hit perfectly. So let's wiggle it here. I'll show you better on the other side, I promise. Okay. So I'm going to hold that for just a little bit, let the glue set and or dry. You can also use a double-sided like quick tape or double-sided stick tape, score tape. For those, I like to use glue as well just because, you know, I like to make sure they're going to stick and stay stuck. So I will do glue on both sides of this one again. Now for this one, let me see if I can show you better. So we want to put this piece on top of that bracket that is on the front piece. And so you could definitely add this part on before you add your front piece on. Just don't put glue on the back piece, obviously. So by gluing this onto that bracket piece, it's only on, and of course I'm using purple on purple so you can't see it very good, but it's only going to be on that bracketed piece. And that, because that's the movable part, or the part that doesn't move or doesn't have a moving part on that front piece. And so once I have that bracketed piece put together here, make sure everything else is lined up good, and then adhere it to the back side. And then that will hold on your front piece to your back piece, and you don't have the slippage, which is a big issue. You can't do it on the bottom because it gets in way of those things there. So let's just finish this one up quick. We might have to switch out the battery, so if it stops and starts again, I'm sorry. So we're just gonna, of course, putting glue just on the area that it is going to hit here. And I liked doing, so the one for class, I tucked the banner underneath the little bunny here. Kind of had it off to the side here. I'm going to leave a little bit more real estate because I want to add in my little paint bucket in front there instead of tucking it behind. So I'm going to tuck him here. You could put it over there. You could put it behind him. You could get it on the hills in the background if you so choose. And then I'm just going to do my little paint buckets. So keep in mind for your paint buckets, you have about an inch and a half real estate on that front hill to stick up and over. If you're going to go with more, you want to make sure that it is underneath where that hill is going to go through. It is, yeah, I'd say, yeah, you have about 1.5 inches. As long as it's on the hill completely, you'll be fine with it. So that kind of helps if, you know, that's something you struggle with. So, and then for my little butterflies, I'm just gonna put my glue on and pop those on here. I think I want them going, whoops, this way. And we'll have this one kind of floating up this way. It just kind of adds a little bit of interest, I think, to the front or that little scene. You could definitely put some saying on there if you wanted to. Other things, you can add the little bunny, the little butterfly trail thingy if you so choose. Let's see. We'll freehand it again and hope for the best. I just threw a block somewhere. Let's see. Where did it go? My mask is getting the best of me again. Okay. I think I used Amethyst, and I don't think it was quite dark enough. I'm going to go in with a little bit darker of a purple for this one, just because I want them to stand out just a little bit better. You could definitely go with black, or a teal would maybe work as well. This way you can see them a little bit better on camera. There you go. So I just added the little bunny trails, or the little bunny trails, the little butterfly trails or tails there, and that finishes up my ta-da diorama today. So, and it pops open. Oh, it's good. And yes, you could definitely put your butterflies out a little bit more, and then they would, you know, you could see them in that way. But there is the completed ta-da diorama. I hope you enjoyed this one. If you want to click that like button, subscribe, comment below. Oh, we didn't add it to our card base yet. So card base, right? I usually just close it up. Score tape on the back works well for this as well. I'm just going to do a bead of glue all the way around. I am using a heavier cardstock, so I'm not worried about that so much. And then whoops, I am off. So I just eyeball it into the center. So going that 3.5 by 4 3/4, it's got a little small border all the way around it. You could definitely cut it down to size if you would like it to be flat, but then it'll pop up. So once you have it on your card base, feel free to add some glitter and glimmer if you really want to. Keep in mind that if you have it, so we did add glitter on card night, and so keeping in mind that you either have to leave it open or leave it closed. You could definitely add the glitter before you actually glue your pieces all together. So if you have dry time, you're more than welcome to. I think I'm just going to come in here and just hit it with a little bit. Using a glitter pen that's dry right away would work as well. I will just set this one. I'm just going to make the pink my glittery. I have glitter pink paint. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's just going to have it on a couple of spots. As long as I don't close it all the way, we should be good. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to get, well, I should be able to get both sides here. So just the pink ended up being glittery, which works as well. So keeping it open, yeah, glitter adds an extra level of you know, when it comes to dry time or moving it, so I can't go in and out with it. But that's the one we did today. Here's the one we did in class. So yes, my glitter is dry on this one and I can play with it again. But just keep in mind, if you are going to do glitter on it, you're going to have to do it either in steps or leave it half open, half closed, so you can let it dry, and that you don't want the glitter to touch any of your things while it's drying. So I do like the addition that the glitter kind of adds that little shimmer and shine. So that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed this one and have an amazing rest of your day. Bye!